I pulled into the empty lot, gravel crunching under my tires. The building looked different in evening light, older, more weathered than I'd remembered from the photos. Marcus had asked me to check on the renovations, said he'd be along shortly. The front door stood slightly ajar. I pushed it open, breathing in sawdust and fresh paint. "Mrs. Brennan?" I turned toward the voice. A tall man emerged from the back room, wiping his hands on a cloth. Dark hair, maybe 45, with the kind of confidence that fills a space. "I'm Rowan. Your husband hired me for the electrical work." He extended a calloused hand. "He mentioned you'd be stopping by." "Yes, he wanted me to see the progress." I shook his hand, noting the firmness of his grip, though I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be looking for. "Well, I can show you what we've done so far." His smile was easy, professional. "The wiring's all updated, new fixtures throughout. Your husband has good taste." He led me through the main room, pointing out outlets and switches. I nodded at appropriate moments, though my knowledge of electrical work was minimal. The space felt different with someone else in it, smaller, more intimate. "There's something in the back room he specifically wanted you to inspect," Rowan said. "Some concern about the ceiling fixture placement." I followed him, wondering why Marcus couldn't have looked at this himself. In the corner of the room, a small device caught my eye. Black, unobtrusive, mounted near the ceiling. I almost asked about it, then decided it was probably part of the security system. Rowan gestured toward the light fixture. "What do you think? Too centered, or should we shift it toward the window?" I stepped closer to examine it, feeling his presence behind me. "I think it's fine where it is," I said, tilting my head back to study the fixture. The light cast shadows across the ceiling, creating patterns I hadn't noticed before. "You sure? Your husband seemed concerned about the positioning." Rowan moved closer, pointing upward. "He mentioned something about the angle affecting the room's ambiance." I leaned forward for a better look, conscious of how close he was standing. His cologne was subtle, cedar and something else I couldn't identify. "It looks properly centered to me." I started to step back, but his hand touched my shoulder. Light pressure, steadying. "Careful. There's a loose board behind you." I froze. His fingers were warm through my blouse, gentle but deliberate. I should have moved away immediately. Should have thanked him and stepped aside. Instead, I found myself looking up at him. "Thank you," I whispered. His eyes were gray-green, intense in the dim light. His thumb traced along my collarbone, barely a whisper of contact. I flinched but didn't pull away. "Amanda." He said my name like he was testing how it felt. My breath caught. 43 years of marriage, and I couldn't remember the last time Marcus had looked at me like this. Rowan's fingers moved to my neck, tracing the line of my pulse. Everything before that moment seemed to lose meaning. The renovations, the inspection, the reasons I was supposed to be here, all of it faded. There was only his touch, his gaze, the way my skin responded to him. The rest happened in whispers and shadows. What followed belongs off-screen, in the space between breaths and heartbeats. When the silence finally settled around us, I knew I had crossed a line I could never uncross. I didn't regret it. Later, as I smoothed my blouse and tried to collect myself, something shifted in my peripheral vision. I turned toward the corner where I'd noticed the device earlier. The small black camera was angled directly toward where we'd been standing. My blood went cold. I stared at it, watching for any sign of movement. any blinking light that might confirm what I was beginning to suspect. The device remained motionless, but its presence felt suddenly enormous. "Rowan?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. "That camera, how long has it been there?" He followed my gaze, his expression unreadable. "Your husband installed the security system last week. Said he wanted to monitor the progress." Monitor the progress. I repeated the words slowly, tasting their meaning. "And you knew about this?" "I knew about the cameras, yes." The plural hit me like a physical blow. Cameras, multiple. I looked around the room with new eyes, spotting 2 more devices I'd missed before. One near the window, another by the door we'd entered through. "How many people have access to these feeds?" I asked. "Just your husband, as far as I know." Just my husband, who had asked me to come here, who was supposed to join me but hadn't shown up yet, who had hired this man, installed these cameras, and orchestrated this entire evening. I thought about Marcus's behavior over the past few weeks, the late nights, the mysterious phone calls, his sudden interest in renovating a space we'd barely discussed. It all made a different kind of sense now. "He's watching right now, isn't he?" I said. Rowan didn't answer, but his silence was confirmation enough. I stared at the nearest camera, wondering what my husband had seen, what he'd wanted to see. The intimacy I'd felt moments before curdled into something else entirely. Exposure, manipulation, betrayal. But not the kind of betrayal I'd expected. The front door opened with a soft click. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. I could feel Marcus's presence like a change in air pressure. "How's the inspection going?" His voice was calm, conversational, as if he'd just arrived from running errands. I turned slowly. My husband of 43 years stood in the doorway, still wearing his work clothes, his expression pleasant and untroubled. Not the face of a man who just discovered his wife's infidelity. The face of a man who'd been expecting it. Marcus. I searched his features for anger, hurt, surprise, anything that would make sense of this moment. "How long have you been watching?" "Long enough." He stepped into the room, nodding to Rowan like they were colleagues finishing a project. "Rowan did exactly what I asked him to do." The words hit me like ice water. "What you asked him to do." "You've been different lately, Amanda. Distant, going through the motions." Marcus closed the door behind him, the sound final. "I wanted to see if there was still fire in you, if you could still want something." "So you hired someone to seduce me?" "I hired someone to give you a choice. What you did with that choice was entirely up to you." I looked between them, my husband and the man I'd just betrayed him with. Rowan's expression was neutral, professional. This was business to him, a job he'd been paid to do. "You're both sick," I whispered. "Are we?" Marcus moved closer, his tone still maddeningly calm. "You seemed to enjoy yourself. You said you didn't regret it." Heat flooded my cheeks. He'd heard everything, every whisper, every breath, every moment I thought was private and spontaneous. That was before I knew it was a setup. Does knowing change how it felt? The question hung in the air like smoke. I wanted to say yes, wanted to claim that the manipulation negated everything that had happened. But the truth was more complicated, more uncomfortable. It had felt real. It had felt like awakening. Marcus walked to the corner where the camera was mounted, reaching up to adjust its angle slightly. The casual gesture made my skin crawl. I've been thinking about this for months, he said, his back still turned to me. About what we've become. Roommates going through the motions of a marriage. So your solution was to fill me with another man? My solution was to remind you that you're still a woman with desires. That we're both still capable of wanting something more than routine. He turned back to face me, and for the first time, I saw something vulnerable in his expression. Not the calculating orchestrator, but the husband who'd watched his wife come alive in another man's arms. It worked, didn't it? You felt something tonight you haven't felt in years. I couldn't deny it. The shame of that truth burned in my throat. Now it's your turn, Marcus continued, to choose what happens next. My turn for what? To choose who comes next, the next time, the next encounter. His smile was calm, controlled. I want to watch you discover yourself again, but I want you to be the one making the choices. The room felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in. Rowan remained silent, a witness to the dissolution of everything I'd thought I knew about my marriage. You want me to pick someone else? I said slowly. To have affairs while you watch? I want you to explore what you've been denying yourself, what we've both been denying ourselves. Marcus stepped closer. 43 years, Amanda. We've earned the right to want more than we have. And you? What do you get out of this? I get to see you alive again. I get to want my wife instead of tolerating her. The words should have hurt more than they did. Instead, they felt like a door opening onto something I didn't recognize, but couldn't entirely reject. I looked at the cameras again, seeing them differently now. Not instruments of betrayal, but witnesses to possibility. I need time to think, I said finally. Of course. Marcus's voice was gentle now, almost tender. Take all the time you need. But Amanda, he paused until I met his eyes. Don't take so long that you forget what this felt like. Rowan cleared his throat. I should go, unless you need me to finish anything here. No, we're done for tonight. Marcus shook his hand like they were concluding a business meeting. Thank you for your help. I watched Rowan gather his tools, this stranger who'd touched me with such gentle precision. At the door, he turned back. For what it's worth, he said quietly, you deserve to feel wanted. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with my husband and the weight of what had just happened. Marcus moved to turn off the cameras, the red recording lights blinking out one by one. The room felt different in their absence, smaller, more ordinary. How long have you been planning this? I asked. Since your birthday. You look so sad blowing out the candles, like you were mourning something instead of celebrating. I remembered that night, 67 years old, surrounded by family and friends, feeling invisible in my own life. When had I stopped being someone who could surprise herself? The cameras will stay installed, Marcus said, in case you decide you want to use them, but only when you're ready, only with someone you choose. And if I choose no one, if I decide this was a mistake, then we'll figure out what comes next, together. He moved toward the door, then stopped. I love you, Amanda. I've loved you for 43 years, but I'd forgotten what it looked like when you loved yourself. The door closed behind him with a soft click, leaving me alone in the renovated space. I stood there for a long time, feeling the echoes of touch on my skin, the weight of choice settling around me like a new dress I wasn't sure I was brave enough to wear. 3 days later, I returned to the space alone. The key felt heavier than it should have in my hand as I unlocked the door. Inside, everything looked the same. The fresh paint, the updated fixtures, the cameras mounted in their corners like sleeping eyes. I walked to the back room where it had happened, running my fingers along the wall where Rowan had touched me. The memory was still vivid, still electric. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Take your time. I'm here when you're ready." I deleted the message and scrolled through my contacts, pausing at names I hadn't called in years. College friends, former colleagues, the yoga instructor who'd always lingered after class to talk. People who might see me as more than half of a couple, more than a woman marking time until the end. At the window, I watched traffic move past on the street below. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that in this room a marriage had been dismantled and rebuilt into something unrecognizable. I thought about Rowan's words, "You deserve to feel wanted." The phrase had been circling my mind for 3 days, wearing new grooves in my thinking. Did I deserve it? More importantly, did I want it? I pulled out my phone again and opened a new message. Not to Marcus, not to any of the names in my contacts, but to a number I'd memorized from a business card left on my windshield yesterday. A woman from the coffee shop who'd smiled at me differently, who'd written her number on the back of her receipt with a simple note, "If you ever want to talk." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. The choice was mine now, all of it. The when, the who, the how much or how little, the power to say yes or no, to explore or retreat, to become someone new or remain safely unchanged. I began to type. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the renovated space in shades of gold and possibility. In the corner, the cameras waited patiently, ready to record whatever I decided to become. I hit send.